most sponsors, what they think they need is more deals and more capital, right? That's actually the easy stuff, in my opinion. The hard stuff is hiring people, developing leadership. It's the operations.
Welcome to the Lead Sponsor, where we bring you exclusive access to the most successful and sought-after real estate syndication sponsors in the industry. Join us as we dive deep into the stories, strategies, struggles, and secrets of these elite professionals who are changing the game in commercial real estate investing. Whether you're an active sponsor looking to take your business to the next level, or a passive investor looking for the best operators in the country, the Lead Sponsor podcast is for you.
Hey guys, David Robinson here. Welcome to the Lead Sponsor podcast. We've got another great episode for you today. I'm extremely excited to have our guest on today. It's someone that I've been wanting to get on the show for quite some time. I've been waiting for an opportunity to have someone that could give me a good connection so that he would actually join me here. And I'm really excited to have Don Wenner with me from DLP Real Estate Capital. Don, thanks for coming on.
Hey, thank you, David. Really an honor to be here. Excited to chat with you today.
So Don Wenner is the founder and CEO of DLP Real Estate Capital. He's a leader in the real estate investing, private direct lending, construction management, and sales world. DLP has been ranked as an Inc. 5000 fastest growing U.S. company for 9 consecutive years and has almost $3 billion in assets under management. Don himself has been named as one of the top 15 real estate professionals by Real Trends and the Wall Street Journal for 7 straight years. That might be a little bit outdated. It might be more than that, but 7 straight years is what I've got. And Don resides in St. Augustine, Florida with his wife and his 2 sons, or do you have 3 now?
I have 3 now, yep.
Yeah, all right, 3. So my bio is a little bit older. Great. Well, Don, obviously just a very brief bio there. Would like to kick the show off by having you just give us an overview of your business as it is today. What is DLP all about? Maybe give us a description of how your different businesses are all integrated and what your world looks like today.
Yeah, thank you, David. Love to. And just to kick off, as you said, I live in St. Augustine as my primary home in St. Augustine, Florida. But today I'm talking to you from Queenstown, New Zealand, where I've been in the last 6 weeks with my family here. So I'm 18 hours ahead of you. I'll tell you after the show what the future's like. But anyway, excited to be here. But yeah, so DLP Capital is a company I founded now 17 years ago. What we do in one sentence is we invest in finance, develop, and operate thriving workforce housing communities. And more to give a little color behind that. So today we're actually just under $5 billion in assets. We manage discretionary private investment funds. So funds that lend money and funds that invest equity into primarily communities. And so that's multifamily, that's single family build for rent, that's mobile home, and RV is actually an area we're very focused on. We own close to 20,000 existing rental units in our operating portfolio that's run in one of our funds. We're actively developing right now 11 to 13,000 brand new units in single family, multifamily. So we've got a pretty big development arm that's been a huge growth area for us for the last few years. We've financed over $2 billion in acquisitions and development and construction of housing in the past 1 year alone. So very big on the kind of financing side. What else? So we run real estate brokerage, title. We do a lot of our property management in-house, development and construction in-house. Headquartered in St. Augustine, where we have about 150 of our team members. We started the company in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, where we have about 100 of our team members still today. And one of the things I'm most proud of with our kind of where we are today, last year we did about $600 million of revenue. We raised $474 million of equity in our funds last year, new equity. To give a perspective, acquired $1 billion in real estate, financed $2 billion. And what's cool about all that is, this is year 17, and we've grown by over 50% in our revenue growth every year for 17 straight years. Never grown 100% in a year, but have very consistently grown now to a pretty good size, and still, of course, actively growing. So it's a range of what we do, and I'll kind of pause there and turn it back to you.
Well, yeah, that's incredible what you've accomplished with all your companies, and we're going to back up here in a minute and get the story of how you've gotten to where you're at today. That being said, what is your main focus in your businesses today? I mean, once you start running an operation of your size, your focus has to shift down to certain aspects of the business. And what does that look like for you?
Yeah, it's a great question, and this second half of kind of my career, so these last 8 years or so, for sure the largest allocation of my time has been in one or two areas, depending on how you think about it. One is hiring great talent, and two is developing that talent. So the people function of the organization. So I've averaged, and this probably isn't something a lot of people will be excited to do, but I've averaged about 6 to 7 interviews a week for the last 8 years. And I manage a good amount of direct reports in our organization, spend a lot of time intentionally developing our leaders, and have 4 to 6 one-on-one meetings with leaders a week, focused on developing them. So the development of the people function of our organization has been the biggest allocation of my time. But with that said, I think of it as I try to, I have my head in the clouds and my feet squarely in the mud, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs love the head in the clouds side and love being the visionary side, which I certainly am the visionary in our organization. But I also think it's really important as you scale a high growth organization that you have your feet and really your hands in the dirt. Really knowing what's going on, and so I'm involved operationally, across the organization in a structured kind of way that allows me to do so across the organization, which I can talk about. But give a perspective, I still lead, bringing capital into our funds, even though I got a great team that does that. I lead bringing deals into the organization. I bring more than half, 2/3 of all the deals we fund into the organization, bringing new great sponsors, which is at the center of our organization, into our community. So I've got my hands in a lot of areas, but make sure I put the largest amount of focus around building the people function of the company today.
Love it. Thanks for that description. So I want to back up. You've accomplished a daunting amount of business in the last 17 years. And for those that are just listening to us and not watching on YouTube, Don doesn't have a gray hair on his head.
I know about that,
he looks like he's mid 30s at best. And you've been at this for 17 years, so you had to have gotten started really young. So let's talk about that. I mean, you've done some incredible stuff here. Let's back up and talk about the journey a little bit. Maybe, yeah, just help us to understand where it all started for you and how did it progress from there?
Yeah, thank you for that. And I am 38. So I started when I was 20 years old. I was a college student when I got into real estate. But to just backtrack just a slight beyond that. So my parents had me at 16 years old, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania area. They were in high school, obviously. And, grew up with my dad as a prison guard and my mom running a home daycare. They divorced when I was very young. I'm the oldest of 5. So I had, we call it the humble beginnings, and which was great in a lot of ways, but grew up in a family of love and Christian faith, growing up in the church, and I was about as pigheaded and thought I knew everything at 15 years old as I did as an adult, and so it was quite a handful in some ways from my mom. And long story short, when I was 17, essentially had a conversation where I said, if you think you can do things so well yourself, then go do it. And so I moved out of my parents' house at 17 years old, and was determined I'm not going to ever come back with my tail between my legs, asking for help, asking for money, needing to move back. So waited tables through high school, Was fortunate to have good grades and SAT scores and such, and got nearly a full ride to Drexel University, where I studied finance and accounting. But I knew what I was going to do from 8th grade on. I knew I was going to be a financial advisor because they made more money than doctors, lawyers, accountants. And I was taught in a career day from a financial advisor who ended up then shadowing that you needed to be good at math and be entrepreneurial. And I said, well, that's me. So I thought I knew what I was going to do, but worked at some cool companies like BlackRock and Merrill Lynch and such in college. And then stumbled into real estate. So on waiting tables on the weekends, a guy convinced me to come work for him selling alarm systems door to door. Knew nothing about alarm systems, but literally went out, started knocking on doors, selling alarm systems, knocked on lots and lots and lots of doors, which led to me becoming the number one sales rep in the country for ADT and making $6,000 to $8,000 every 2 weeks as a 19-year-old. While in college, and that gentleman happened to be a real estate agent, and so he then convinced me if I could sell alarm systems, knocking on doors, I could sell real estate. Got my real estate license in October of 2006. Still in college, and again pounded a lot of pavement, made a lot of phone calls, and built up some momentum. It took me 6 months to have my first sale. But that month I had 5, and then over the next 6 months had 60 some sales, made $250,000 my first year as a real estate agent. And then quickly, as the market was turning in 2007, started flipping homes. So our marketing message was your home sold in 68 days, guaranteed, or we'll buy it. And we'd help people sell their home and took away risk, or we'd step in and buy it. So that led to us growing a real estate brokerage and growing a home flipping business. Those were our first 2 businesses over the first few years. That's really what we did. Found motivated home sellers, helped them sell, or bought it. We grew those businesses to a point that we couldn't find enough good contractors, so we started doing self-performing constructions. We built a construction arm. Over the next couple years, we were flipping a couple hundred homes a year at that time. By 2011, we said, hey, it's the bottom of the market. Let's start building a rental portfolio. So we had to build property management to do that. There was really no other option in a small market in Pennsylvania to manage a bunch of different scatter type of properties than to do it yourself. And I started needing capital then as we started holding properties. And that's when we started raising discretionary capital into private funds, which I'll tell you was very, very difficult to do at 25 years old in 2011 in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. When your family all works for you and your friends are 25, there's no family and friends money, no track record. 2011, people didn't think, workforce housing or multifamily was some great strategy back in 2011, right? The most common feedback would be, why aren't you buying an office building in New Jersey? Why would you buy, multifamily in Florida, right? But we built that up. In the first few years, it was mainly buying syndicate or small scattered assets, single family, 20-unit multifamily buildings, bought some different commercial properties, bought a few subdivisions in different stages of completion that were, bankrupt, heavily distressed stuff. By 2014, we had 100 employees. We owned 700 properties. And we kind of came up for air and said, what do we want to do next? How do we want to grow a business focused around housing? We knew that was our focus, specifically workforce housing, where today all of our funds are impact funds. We're focused on making a positive impact, creating housing that is and will remain affordable for the local workforce. And so in 2014, we decided on 2 paths. One was start lending money to other people, investing similar to us, and 2 was to start buying larger value-add multifamily. So that drove me to Jacksonville, where we determined was one of the best markets to invest in the country, and we started buying in Jacksonville, hence me moving to St. Augustine. Then we started buying in Orlando and Daytona, and then throughout the Southeast, and then across the Sun Belt over the years. In the beginning, like many syndicators, we weren't syndicating per se, but we were doing it in funds. But like many getting started, we bought the heavy lift C assets, 1970 stuff, 30 a door renovations, right? Really heavy lift stuff, 80 unit, 100 unit, 120 unit type stuff. And then we were lending to home flippers. And as we built our multifamily expertise, then we started lending to other multifamily operators. And then over the years, we started buying some newer, nicer assets, and we started doing more ground up development. And then we started lending to other developers, and then we owned a big home building business too, and we started lending to other home builders. And then in 2017, we started doing joint venture partnerships with other sponsors, and kind of brought together our lending business and our sponsor business by doing partnerships with those sponsors. And then in 2018, I had an interesting phone call on a December evening. It was like 9:30 at night on December in 2018, and one of the sponsors who we had been lending to for about 4 years, one of my very first borrowers in 2014, he'd gone from being a 15, 20 home a year home flipper to owning $200 million worth of real estate, having 50 employees, had built a real business. And he called me up and he was one of the success stories I would tell to investors and talk about him. And he called me up in kind of a panic, and he was all over the place, and he was scattered, and I could tell he was really upset, and didn't really know why he called me until about maybe 8 minutes into the call, when he told me he couldn't make payroll on Friday. And again, it's Thursday at 9:30. He can't make payroll on Friday. And he goes on to tell me how hard he's having to work. He's got to work 100 hours a week. He can't get anybody capable of doing anything. He's got no leaders. He's got to do everything himself. He thinks his controller was stealing from him. He had to fire him. He's working so hard. He's so stressed out that his wife just filed for divorce on him earlier that week, taking his 2 young kids. So he's in about as bad of a position you can be in, right? And when he's unloading all this to me, it hit me like somebody had just kicked me in the stomach, because 20 minutes earlier I thought I'd helped him so much, right? I thought we were such a big part of his growth. He was a success story. And it completely hit me in that moment that we had completely missed out on the opportunity. In some ways, we'd put him in a worse position because we gave him access to capital that he was able to grow. But all he did was grow and do more deals and build a portfolio, but he didn't actually build a better business, and actually added more stress and actually put him and his family at more risk in a lot of ways, hence not being able to make payroll. So I decided to help him make payroll, which we did for Friday, and then we got into his business and started helping him hire the right people. First place, we got him a controller and helped him dial his business, helped him put operations in place, helped him figure out how to prioritize, helped him narrow down kind of his focus, and quickly realized that he needed that help more than he needed capital, and realized that most sponsors, what they think they need is more deals and more capital, right? That's actually the easy stuff. In my opinion, the hard stuff is hiring people, developing leadership. It's the operations. So quickly, we were helping a number of groups do this, and what we're helping them do is what we've been doing at DLP now for 17 years, running this elite execution system, this disciplined way that we've grown by 50% a year for 17 years. What I wrote a book on a couple years ago called Building an Elite Organization, and we started helping sponsors put discipline in their business, help them run and build an elite organization. And that's now turned into this community of 30 plus sponsors that we build these deep relationships and help them scale their business and bring them part of a great community. And then in turn, we provide them lots of capital. And so that's been a big part of our journey. So the last few years, we've done a lot of joint ventures, a lot of lending, as we've been building our direct portfolio and business as well. So it's been a great journey, and that kind of brings us where we are today. Oh, one last thing. Sorry, David, I forgot to mention that's important is last year we bought a bank. So that's the newest thing we've added. So I own a bank now called Community State Bank. It's about to go through a rebrand, but it'll be called DLP Bank soon. And but bought that bank last year, which adds another low cost balance sheet that we can provide capital to sponsors and that we work with. So.
Well, what an overview and what an incredible journey over a period of 17 years or so, all bundled into about 5 minutes. So I want to unpack a handful of that. But first and foremost, the book that you referenced, Building an Elite Organization, I'm assuming that can still be found on Amazon in hardcover or digital format. In fact, I've listened to it on the Audible. Incredible book, and in there you really have taken a Frankenstein approach to all the great operational and business building principles and strategies and tactics out there, implemented them, like legitimately implemented them in your own business in a way that fit you and what you were looking to do. And now you've packaged it in a way where other business owners who are really looking to take their business to another level to use. And so really encourage everyone to go out and pick up a copy of that, Building an Elite Organization by Don Wenner. That being said, I want to dive into a few pieces of this. Look, man, you are not normal, right? So what I want to hear from and learn from you is there's plenty of young, ambitious, incredibly smart individuals that are really excited about building their business in the real estate world, in the private equity world, that aren't going to be able to accomplish what you've accomplished. What sets you apart from everybody else that started out at nearly the same time you did, that has allowed you to achieve such amazing results? On a personal level, I get that there's incredible people around you, and that's a guy like you. That's the first thing you're going to say is there. I've surrounded myself with incredible people, but I'm interested in just diving into you. And if you can put aside, the humility at this point and really just share with us what's unique about you and what traits and characteristics do you have that have allowed you to build such an incredible organization at such a young age, really.
Yeah, thank you for that, David. And yeah, I will avoid giving which is really critical is, I have invested. It's not just that I've tried with some great people. It's that I've invested an incredible amount of intentional time in doing that, right, and realizing how important that was early on in my career. But to talk to kind of what has enabled me, personally, to be the CEO of an organization that's had the kind of growth we've had. I'll say, first and foremost, that I think is really critical and important is that I have realized very early on in my career and in many ways my life that everything I accomplish and we accomplish is because of the Lord and the blessings that I've had. And I recognize all of us, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably live in America. You live at this point in time in history, and with an incredible amount of opportunity and resources. We're all in the 0.1% of luckiest, wealthiest, most access to knowledge and information and resources and relationships ever in human history. And so recognizing and appreciating that and understanding, how small I am and that I have the responsibility to shepherd a lot of gifts that have been given to me. So certainly I was, given a certain amount of drive and ambition and entrepreneurialism that, isn't common at a young age. I have 3 boys now today and trying to determine how do you instill that same drive and effort and grit that came to me naturally. Part of it was the environment I grew up in, but at a certain level, I have siblings who aren't at the level of kind of drive and grit that I was blessed with. Right, I just how I was how I came into this world and certainly was blessed with a capacity to learn and capacity to consume information and put into action and the right temperaments and such that have helped me. And again, anything can be developed, but certain things that came naturally and easier just naturally that I don't get to take any credit for. But I think so over the many years, really from the mindset of trying to become a great father and put my children in a position to be incredible, successful men in this world. I've spent a lot of time over the last decade really trying to figure out what is the formula for success, right? What is the formula that if you want to be incredibly successful, if you want to live a life of significance and joy and happiness, what are the characteristics? And and recently, about a year ago, I came up with, or I should say, finalized up what I call the 5 keys to a life of success, significance, and happiness. And they're really choices or commitments that anybody can make. That I think will put you in a position to achieve everything you want out of life, right? Not everybody wants to run an organization like I run, right? If most people knew what my schedule, saw my schedule every day or every week, they'd have no interest in it, right? They have no interest in doing what I do every day. Wouldn't be a lot of fun. It'd be too demanding, too structured, whatever the case is for a lot of people. But whatever is important, how you want to build your life, and being able to go out and achieve things that look incredibly wild to maybe other people, but really most importantly make you feel fulfilled and happy and bring joy to your life. I call these 5 keys. The first is intentionality, So, I've been incredibly intentional about how I build my business, how I build my life, what I want to accomplish. Hence, I've been in New Zealand here for 6 weeks, traveling with my family, cyber school, our kids. We have a traveling teacher who travels with us. We want to build this lifestyle very intentionally that allows us to do this. That doesn't just happen, right? It's a lot of intentional planning of what type of lifestyle I want to live and what kind of experiences I want to give to my kids, et cetera. And that level of intention I've put into how I've grown our organization. So one is intention, two is purpose, really knowing why you're here, right? The great saying attributed to Mark Twain, the two greatest days in your life, the day you were born and the day you find out why, right? So having clear, purpose to where you're going, the direction to your life. Three is having, really clear goals. So we've built, some really cool tools to help people create and set really clear goals. A tool we call the Personal Compass is at the center of that. And on our website, DLPElite.com, there, which is a place just for the book type content, the Elite Execution System, you can download a whole bunch of free tools, including this compass I'm talking about. But having really intentional goals, long term and short term, that guide day-to-day action. That's third. Fourth is grit. I believe grit is something that can be built, something that can be improved. Grit is passion, perseverance towards long-term goals. It's saying centered around, basically becoming great at your craft, right? Becoming great at what you do. And sticking with it and enjoying the process of incremental growth and improvement, right? It's kind of the opposite of the Steve Jobs concept of find something you love and you'll never work a day in your life. It's love what you do, right? You'll find love in becoming great at what you do, and you can find that in any business line if you dig in, are willing to put in the work to become great at what you do. Some of the most successful people I know are in the most boring businesses in the world. I know a guy I was talking to the other day, he's in a group with me. He runs a $22 billion glue company. Glue. Right? He's bored telling me what he does. I'm bored listening to it in 5 minutes, but he's incredibly passionate about glue and has built a $22 billion business around glue, right? And he's passionate about it. He's gritty about it, right? And then five, and this is the final point, and also I think the thing that's, that I've been putting the most focus on with my kids over the last 4 or 5 years, the first 4 or 5 years I put the most focus around grit, but I think is really, really a big deal is growth mindset. And growth mindset, the kind of concept comes from a book from Carol Dweck called Mindset. And growth mindset is the belief that that if you're willing to put in the work to learn and to do, you can learn and gain knowledge and grow in any area, improve in any area of your life. And so for me, from a very young age, I was never afraid or worried about doing something new, right? I never had this concern like, I don't know how to do it, or how am I going to learn it? I've always just thought, well, if somebody else is doing something that I want to do, well, of course I can do it. Not only can I do it, I can do it faster and I can do it better because I have the template to follow. And so I've always just had that mindset. Hey, when I want to get into a different strategy, I want to get into the fund management business or buy a bank or whatnot. Well, of course I can do that, right? Other people own banks. Other people do this. Well, I'm willing to put in the work to learn. I'm going to be putting the work to do. So of course I can do it. And I've had that mindset from a very young age, which I can only come to learn in the last number of years, that term growth mindset. But I've always had the belief of why not, right? Why can't I do it? And never had that fear of going into something new, or fear that I couldn't do it or I'm not capable or whatnot. And for some that has to be built, and that's hard. For me, it came kind of natural at a very young age. In 8th grade, I saw a financial advisor on career day who's told us financial advisors, make more money than doctors, lawyers, accountants. And to be a financial advisor, you had to be good at math and be entrepreneurial. And so 8th grade, I thought, well, I can do that. I shadowed him a few weeks later. In 8th grade, I annoyed this guy to let me shadow him. And I thought in 8th grade I could do his job better than him. Not when I was an adult, but right now, right? Because I watched what he did. He didn't take notes. He wasn't detailed. He wasn't following through. When I followed back up with him, did you follow up with the sister of the lady we met with? No, I haven't done that. What do you mean? She was just retiring, and she's going to need And in 8th grade, I just had this. Well, yeah, this isn't that hard, right? I'm going to dig in. I'm going to do the work. So I'd say that's kind of how I would sum it up. And I think anybody can might take a little longer, might be harder, can accomplish what I've done, but that's not most people's roadmap, right? It's not what they want to do. And I find, my last note on this, I find when people sit down with me in our Elite membership, or we help them build up the strategy, and they look at us and they say, well, that's what I want to do, right? I want to have a business that has vertically integrated in all these strategies. I want to run funds, and I want to have many billions of dollars of assets, and I want to do this. But they say that because that sounds cool or it looks great, but that might not really be what they want to do. Do you want to have 400 or 500 employees, right? Do you want to, have the level of structure and demands we have? Do you want to be responsible to thousands of investors counting on you, every day? That's not for everybody, right? So knowing what's your business model, what makes you happy, what would bring you, the joy in your life, I think is really critical.
Yeah, incredible. And I appreciate you going into some detail about that, and love the 5 keys to significance and happiness: the intentionality, purpose, clear goals, grit, and a growth mindset. When you are trying to build out, you said for the first 5 years you were building out grit in your boys, but now you've started to shift to growth mindset. Is there anything you can share with us, and maybe have young children that are, would like to instill these same type of principles into their lives? Any strategies that you're currently using or have used to insert this growth mindset into their world?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I'll hit on grit first, and then I'll hit growth mindset. So on grit, give an example to put it into context. So my oldest son is really great in sports, and it's easy as dad. So I've head coached flag football 17 seasons. I've coached basketball, I've coached soccer for both my 2 older boys, and my older son is a star in whatever he does, and it's very easy as proud dad, right, to want to say things like, man, I'm so proud of you that you got 4 touchdowns this week. Man, you are so athletic. Man, you're so great, right? And praise the results, or praise the things that they don't even control, right? Praise that they're so athletic, or praise that they're so smart, or so handsome, or those things, right? What I try to focus on is praising the behaviors that lead to the results, right? So when my son has a great game, what I'm not talking about is and patting him on the back and talking about all the stats and what he did that week. I'm talking about, man, I'm so proud of how all week long Mom told me you were out there practicing with your brother, and how you were, really practicing how to cut off the sidelines out there, and how we talked about it in practice last, couple practices, and how well you did that out there, putting that practice into reality, right? I'm so proud of how right now what I'm putting a lot of focus is his leadership. So he's 10 years old, and so now I'm really praising, man. I'm so proud of how when Max dropped the ball, how you didn't get mad at him, but you went over to him and gave him some encouragement and patted him on the back, and showed him how he ran his route wrong, but what he needed to look for, and how to run it on the sideline afterwards, and we're supportive of him, right? So praising the activities that will lead to the results, right? What I want to instill with my kids is that the understanding that if I'm willing to put forth the work in anything, I'm going to get better, right? I can do anything, but I got to be willing to put in the work. So understanding the process of grit, of putting in work, and how the results will follow, right? And that's hard at times, right? It's a lot easier to just, to give them the acknowledgement for the end result, but to take the time to acknowledge and pay attention to the effort and really praise the effort, even if the result wasn't great, right? Praising the effort side is really what I try to do. And then just simple things like, we're on a bike ride and going a long distance, and they're complaining they're getting tired, right? And their legs hurt, right? And saying, hey, we're not going to give up, right? We're, talking about what grit is, and we're going to keep going, and we're going to fight through it. The pain is part of the process, right? And that's a big part of it. And I think as parents, those of us, especially raising kids and some level of resources, which probably all of us are, it's easy to want to shelter our kids from struggle, to want to shelter them from challenges, and struggle is a really important part of life, right? So many successful people, like the people you bring on this podcast, right? You want to hear their American Idol story, right? You want to hear the struggles they went through, and that's often what they want to talk about, because that's what they know, that struggle is what helped make them who they are, right? But as parents, we want to rob our kids of the struggle, right? We want to avoid them going through the hard stuff. And I'll just give one more quick example. And this is so my son was playing basketball, and he was the by far distant second best dribbler. There's a kid on the team who really could dribble the ball, was point guard. My kid was basically the shooting guard, and we're playing against a really good team. And the first half of the game, the other team stole the ball from our point guard 15 times, right? Just kept taking the ball from every time we came down the court. And the kid was embarrassed, right? So he all of a sudden he had a tummy ache, right? And his dad is the head coach of the basketball team, and he had a tummy ache and he needed to come out of his game. So his mom comes running over, and dad takes him out, and he sits there out of the game because he was embarrassed. He didn't have a tummy ache, I'm sure of it, right? So my son takes over as point guard, and he's not even as good as the other kid, and he's getting the ball taken from him, right, every time down the court. And he's feeling embarrassed, right? And his knee hurts, and his stomach hurts, and his eyes are watering up, and he keeps looking over. And I'm doing everything I can not to make eye contact because, as dad, I want to take him out of the game, and I want to give him a hug and make him feel better because he's out there in front of everybody, feeling embarrassed, letting his team down. But I made him stay in there, right? And that struggle is a good thing, right? And guess what? After that, we hired a coach who's been coaching him on dribbling. He's dribbling wherever we are around the world. He brings a basketball with him. He's dribbling 30 minutes an hour a day, right? And that's driven him to realize he's got to become a great dribbler. And if he wants to be good at basketball, especially since he's short. And so that struggle is really, really important. And then on the growth mindset topic, I'll just hit on a really quick example. So you get two kids who really want to be successful, and they both work really, really hard, and they both care about their grades, and they both want to go to the great colleges and whatnot, right? And one is a growth mindset, one is a fixed mindset, right? And so they both take a test, and they both, let's say, get 75s, and they're both upset they got 75s. The kid with the fixed mindset is going to say, oh, man, I'm just not good at chemistry. I just not good at chemistry, or the teacher didn't put the right stuff on the test, and they never taught us this, or it's all going to be about, I'm not capable, I'm not good at it, it's somebody else's fault, nothing I can do about it, victimish type attitude. Just how many times you heard people say, oh, that's just who I am. That's just who I am. I'm just, somebody with a growth mindset, they get that 75. They're going to want to know, what questions did they get wrong, so that next time they can get them right? Because they're going to have a belief that I can get better and I can improve. I'm willing to put forth the work, right? And in that little difference, right, they're both upset, they're both driven, they both studied hard, they both want to get great grades. That difference of having a fixed mindset, thinking I can't get better, there's nothing I can do, versus mindset that I can always improve and get better and learn if I'm willing to do the work. That difference, as subtle as it can seem, is, I think, the huge difference in the success you're going to have in all areas of life. And if you can build the understanding that, all right, I got bad grade now, but I can learn, I can get better, and I can become great at this, that plays into everything in life.
I want to shift gears and go back to your business and dive into an acquisition that you took down fourth quarter of last year. This was a $500 million portfolio of multifamily property in the Southeast. So, massive transaction. Talk to us about how a transaction of that size comes together, your role in that, and maybe some details around that deal itself.
Happy to. So I'll say, for us, we decided early on in our career, in our business, probably 10, 12 years ago, that capital management, fund management was our core business. That was the starting point of what we do. That is our center business, right? So a lot of real estate sponsors think of the capital sort of as the means to the end, right? And doing deals or developing properties, that's the core business. And that's perfectly fine, and that may be the case for you, that the capital is the means to the end. It's not the important part of the equation, right? It's what's needed to do the deals, right? We decided for us that building a investor base and building and growing our assets under management was our core business. And when that's your core business, it changes then, how you think about, and how you go about, running then your platform, how you'd go about investing money. And so as an example, with our business, we've been very blessed that, we went from the first year in 2014 raising $5 million. The next year was $20 million. The next year was 55, and then it was 85, and then it was 120, and then it was 170, then it was 220. And last year was 474 million of new equity in our funds, right? So when you have that approach, right, and now we have a significant amount of capital, doing deals where we deploy, we're only deploying $5 million or $3 million or $7 million. It's too hard to do, right? And because of our model, right? If you don't have that model, doing 10, I know a good friend of mine who his model for 15 years now, he's been buying, $5 to $15 million deals, putting $3-4 million into each deal, making $3-4 million a deal in profit. He's gotten to the point now he doesn't even use investors, right? He's built up that cash. He's doing 4 or 5 of these deals a year and makes $20, $30, $40 million profit a year. Right? For me, that wouldn't work, right? If I make $3 million profit on a deal, that doesn't make any difference when you got a fund with $1 billion in it, right? It's not meaningful. So that focus on needing to deploy larger amounts of money creates a lot of great opportunities, don't get me wrong, but it also changes kind of how you need to focus. So for us, it's led to us really needing to focus on deploying larger amounts of money, and buying portfolios is a great way to do that, right? So what's great about buying larger portfolios, you get scales, right? So doing one $500 million deal, believe it or not, is arguably easier in some ways than doing a $20 million deal. It's certainly easier than doing $20 million deals. When you're doing a $500 million deal, everybody's fighting to do the deal, right? Lenders are fighting for your business, right? Everybody wants the business when it gets to that size. And then also when you get to that size, in a lot of ways, if you do it the way we do it, returns can get bigger, not smaller, right? So a lot of people think they're going to build a portfolio and then sell it out as a portfolio to get a lower cap rate, right, and to get a higher spread. And that can work, right? But we found opportunities where, because we can take down scale and make it easier for the seller, we actually can get a discount than when we're buying, one-off. And so we've actually been able to generate, in general, just buying bigger, nicer deals. We actually have been getting better returns than when we were fighting for smaller deals. So that portfolio, though, specifically was the second of those types of portfolio we did in the past year or so, where we bought 10, 20 assets in one acquisition. In many cases, we're even putting together multiple sellers into one transaction, which is what we did on that deal. So we brought together, that deal was 10 assets across 8 states with 3 separate sellers that we brought all together, 3 separate PSAs, 3 separate deals. We brought it together as one portfolio in terms of getting one agency execution across that whole portfolio, which, to give you an idea, we closed on that portfolio in September, October last year, and we locked in 10-year fixed rate agency money at 4.27%, fixed for 6 years, which at that time was really great, certainly even greater now today. That deal has another sponsor, a group we've done about $2 billion of deals with, the first group we ever did a joint venture with. Now we've done $2 billion of deals with a group called Reef out of Dallas, Texas. So Reef is sort of the sponsor equity, and then we have the preferred equity ahead of them. So a great deal. We got scale right away. Reef is the one managing it, the portfolio. As a way for us to deploy a large amount of money, about $75-80 million of equity in one transaction, and get some really good scale.
So it would seem then that one of your core competencies would be identifying, vetting, and selecting sponsors that you want to work with. Do you have any guidance on the other side, for the sponsors out there who are looking for someone like you that could be a great equity partner? What are you looking for in that sponsor? Maybe, and it might have changed over time from when you started to where you're at today, but maybe give us some insight into generally what you're looking for in a sponsor.
Yeah, love to. And I'll just say, our approach is quite different than most groups. And again, depending on how you think about what your business model is and what you're trying to do, right? If you want to build a transactional based business where the capital, again, is just the means to the end, and you're just looking for the cheapest or best execution on each deal, and you're going to hire a broker to go out there and source you different equity options and whatnot, it's probably a different lens or how you want to look at it than the way we look at it from the other side or what we're focused on. So what we're focused on is finding great sponsors that we're going to build, really deep, pragmatic relationships with. And so kind of our filtering system in terms of sponsors we're looking for, number one is we're looking for sponsors that are value aligned with us. And so, a lot of different things I could describe that, but, one of the simple examples is we look for somebody who passes the chug test, right? Somebody that, when you get, if you were stuck at the airport with, right, you'd be happy to go grab a beer with and sit at the airport bar with and have a conversation with, right? Or one of our elite members, a guy named Austin, he calls it the 2 beers and a dog test. Somebody you'd want to go have 2 beers with, and you'd let them watch your dog if you were out of town. So we look for people who are aligned with us from a value standpoint. People when I pick up my phone and I see that person calling, I'm gonna say, I can't wait to talk to them. I'm like, oh man, I don't want to talk to this guy again, right? So we're looking for no a-holes. We're looking for good people who want to do good things. So that's the first thing. That's our first filtering, and that weeds out, a good amount of people that don't fit that criteria, that we're not going to enjoy the relationship. And so that's number one. Second thing we look for are those who genuinely have the desire and we believe have the ability to scale a business. Hence the title of the book, Building an Elite Organization, the blueprint to scaling a high growth, high profit business. We're not interested. There's nothing wrong with it. We're not interested in being part of somebody who's going to run a deal business, right? Every year they're going to do 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 deals. And maybe the deals are going to get a little bit bigger over time, but they're just going to do deals, right? That's great, and that we perfectly fine for your business model. That's not who we want to work with, and we want to partner with those who really want to build a platform, really build a business, build something bigger than themselves, want to leave a legacy. Those are the people we want to be a part of, because those are the people we know we can add the most value to. Third is we're looking for people who have an investment strategy aligned with ours. So those who want to make a positive impact around generally the workforce housing space. 4 is we're looking for people who already have a profitable business model, right? And by profitable business model, I mean a business model that's not just I buy deals from Cushman Wakefield because I pay the most and the market just goes up in value every year, so I make money, right? And a lot of sponsors who turned out okay, who worked out okay the last few years with that mindset, right? They just bought deals at market values, hired third-party management, and maybe still made money if they timed it right? We're looking for people who actually have a value creation model, have some level of deep expertise or value they create in something they do, right? They don't be great at everything, but they've got some special sauce. Maybe it's their sourcing deals, their construction management, their property management, something they do that they get, can generate really good returns. And then, finally, we look for people who we genuinely believe if we do one deal with them, we're going to do business with them, forever. And so that's really the mindset we have. Is this somebody we really think we're going to be able to do business with forever? And so we don't look for a lot of relationships, right? This year, success will be if we had 10 relationships for the year. And so we really are focused on finding those relationships that we're going to be really deep with. And we spend a lot more of our time, we provide them a lot of capital. We have groups we've done, as I said, REEF, we did $2 billion with. We have many groups that right now we've got $100 million out with right now. But we're helping them not just with giving them money. We're helping them. We give them a technology to run their business on. We're helping them scale their platform. We're helping them with hiring. We're helping them with building leadership in their organization. We're taking a really vested interest in helping them, build their business.
Might be a question that is applicable or nuanced, but would you say that the vast majority of the sponsors that you work with enter into your ecosystem through DLP Elite? And that's how is that part of the vetting process for you? It gives you a front row seat into their business, how they operate, what their values are. And it seems like that would be the optimal pathway for you to actually get into business with somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Claudia, who's my chief administrative officer, said this recently, I thought was good, is sometimes our relationships start with lending, right? She's used the term, we date with debt and we marry with equity. And so sometimes a relationship will just start, hey, somebody comes to us, they heard about us or whatever, we've been talking, and they've got this deal they got to close in 17 days, or they're going to lose their $2 million deposit or whatever. And, we're probably the only group, one of the only groups on earth, right, who can pull it off, right? And sometimes that's how a relationship starts, or, we we end up doing a deal, providing capital, helping solve a problem. But a lot of times the relationship starts, with them joining us at one of our events, getting connected with us, building a relationship, and getting a part of, and then deciding they want to become part of, and us accepting them into what we call our Elite membership, which has about 30 of these sponsors today, and getting to know each other. And then the deals happen, right? We're not in a rush. The only way we make money is on deals. That's how we make money, is through making investments. But we build deep relationships, get to know each other through helping them scale their business. So the deal can start in different ways, but usually it starts with them becoming a part of our Elite membership before we really start doing a lot of equity and creative things that we do with groups.
Love it. Well, we've gone longer than I told you we would already, so I want to be respectful of your time. I want to wind down with really just one last question for you. How would you encourage someone to determine what kind of business they actually want to build? You referred to the fact that people will come into your world, DLP Elite, and they'll see what you've built and they'll think, okay, well, this is what I want. But in reality, that may not be the life that they're looking for. Do you have any guidance for someone who's in that stage of their life where they're sort of projecting out over the next 5 to 10 years on what they really want to build? And how do you bring that back down to today, knowing what you're trying to accomplish 5 to 10 years from now and what's right for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'd say, I'm going to give it just a couple of points there. So one is, we, as we just talked about, we attract, great people, right? Great human beings who we spend time with. And so, they didn't get into our community, and generally speaking, unless they're a great person with intentions to improve the world, to do good things, right? And so very often when I'm sitting down with somebody and they're in that stage of trying to figure out their strategy and their direction, and we do this day we call Compass Day, where I sit down and help them and their leadership team lay out the strategic roadmap. And we use a tool called the Compass, which you can download on that free tools thing as well, that puts this framework in place. But a lot of times they'll say, I want to build this business. I want to get to $1 billion of assets under management, right? That's my big goal, right? And I say, well, why? Well, because I really want to help people, right? And there's lots of ways to help people that don't require, building $1 billion balance sheet and managing hundreds of investors' money and whatnot, right? And I've often given the example of Apartment Life. And so Apartment Life is a nonprofit organization that puts essentially a Christian evangelist into an apartment in a multifamily community, and that person becomes sort of the community ambassador, but also spreads the good word kind of through the community. And Apartment Life is 100% nonprofit organization. They're in 800,000 apartments across America, and so the impact that they're having across literally over 1 million residents' lives is significant, right? But that's a nonprofit organization that has no assets under management, right? And as an example, and that's just one example to say, like, there's lots of paths you can make a difference that don't require building, $1 billion business. And so I just say, think about what really is going to make me happy, what I really want to do. And then when you think you have an idea, like, oh, I want to go down this path, I want to launch a fund management business, right? Then do the work of thinking through, what does that mean? And that's what this tool, the Compass, is helpful with, is it helps us walk that through and say, all right, well, to grow and achieve that, let's start with how many employees do I think I'm going to need, right? Do you want to have that many employees, right? For a lot of people, that's not an exciting idea. They don't want a 50-person, 100-person, let alone hundreds of person organization, right? Do I want to take on this responsibility for other people's money? Or do I want to, have to be traveling and looking at properties all the time? Or do I, what are the actual steps that's gonna take? What level of demand is that going to be? How long is that going to take to build it? How is that going to affect the other priorities in your life? And if you do that hard work of just walking through the actual step by step, and when you run the Elite execution system, the system we run that my book's on that you talked about, I look at any time I even think about adding a business line. All right, well, if I add this business line, I'm going to need leaders focused on that. I'm going to now need to add meetings centered around that business line. I'm going to have to join those meetings. Do I want to be in a meeting every week or every month on this topic? Do I want to have a clarity session every 90 days that we do for each business line focused on this business? Is that worth giving 4 full days a year to, right? And I start walking through the actual tactical work that I'm going to have to do and the demands that are going to come from that. It helps you filter it out, right? Say, well, is that really what I want to do? Do I really want to add property management house? Do I really want to add construction house? Do I really want to do my own landscaping function? Do I really want to launch a fund? Do I really want to start lending to? Do I really want to go into new markets? And you start thinking about, what does that mean then? All right, so many groups who come to us, the most common scenario I get is a group with 12 employees, and they're doing multifamily syndications in Charlotte. And now they say, all right, now we're going to go into 7 new markets while we launch property management, while we launch a fund management business, while we add build for rent into our portfolio and start doing development. And there's 12 people in the company. Well, who's going to do all of that, right? Like, are you willing to do the work to put all those people in place? Are you okay with having, like I do, $1 million payroll every 2 weeks, right? Are those things that are you're willing to do or of interest to you? Do you have ambition that you want to be a billionaire, or is it that you're trying to get to a point that you can leave enough wealth to your kids? Well, you don't need to have 12 businesses and $1 billion to have enough wealth to pass on to your children, right? So I just, so we built this process, which is in the book of how to go about laying out the strategic direction and then thinking through what does that mean from a day-to-day standpoint? How does that play into our lives as a whole?
Love it. Don, this has been a fascinating conversation. You've accomplished some incredible feats in your professional life, and I know you from a distance through other relationships, and they have nothing but wonderful things to say about you as a human being, not just as a businessman. Before I let you go, what's the best way for our listeners to connect with you and your team and learn more about what you have going on?
Yeah, thank you for that, David. So DLPcapital.com is our main website. The DLPelite.com is specific to the information on the book and the Elite Execution System, which you can find right on our main website, DLPcapital.com. On there's an event tab as well, where you can see our upcoming events, where we have focused events about 3 times a year around scaling a business around different areas. Our next one's in New Orleans, late March on Legacy. We have an event centered around leadership in May in Asheville, where my entire leadership team will be there, and a lot of our elite members and their leadership teams. You can see all of our information, of course, on all social media. My podcast is called Impact with Don Wenner. And if you like, you can shoot me an email as well, don@dlpcapital.com.
Love it. Don, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you coming on. For all of you that are listening, if you've enjoyed the conversation that we've had with Don today, go down into the show notes right now and click on one of those links to connect with him and his team. And don't forget to run out and pick up a copy of Building an Elite Organization. You can get this on Amazon. It comes in Audible, the hardcover, the softcover, and you can also just find it there at DLPelite.com. So Don, thanks again for coming on, and I look forward to staying in touch down the road.
Awesome. Thank you, David.
Hey there, before you go, I just want to thank you for listening to the show. We hope you enjoyed the episode today, and if you did, please take a moment to rate and review the show. Those ratings and reviews help us to attract the very best guests, and we want to bring you the best guests in the industry. Also, we're active on social media, so be sure to follow us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. There you can stay connected with us and up to date on all of our latest content. Lastly, don't forget to check out our website, theleadsponsor.com. We've got some free trainings and resources there that will help you grow as a leader and an investor. Again, thank you so much for supporting the show. We'll see you next week.